MMORPGs have truly hit rock bottom. We see more and more MMOs dying each day, and a lot more getting their plug pulled out in the middle of development. It reached so far to a point where I think we're not gonna see a good MMORPG in the next 5 years. It's so frustrating to me that the only MMO that I play is one from 20 plus years ago. But we just have to pull through. Maybe good tidings will come.
Every year I put together a video
knows?
taking a look at all of the currently in development MMOs we have to look forward to. In fact, it's become almost a running joke, the number of games that seem to be perpetually on this list year after year, some of which boasting development times of nearly a decade at this point. Well, I got some bad
Ashes
news
of
here. You can all
donations.
stop laughing at the joke. This list just got a heck of a lot shorter. Over the past few months, 4 in development MMOs that I've been looking forward to have been canceled. Four projects, and these weren't just like tiny little barely funded games. No, these were some fairly big deals as far as I'm concerned.
There are no big deals when it comes to MMO. Release the game and I'll tell you if it's a big deal or not. While you're doing development and everything is still beneath the table, this MMO isn't big or small, it's just non-existent. So I hate the fact whenever someone tells me, oh, this is gonna be the next big new MMO because there's a lot of budget behind it. Budget doesn't mean anything. And we've seen it clearly because a lot of MMOs just got their money dumped on them and they turn out to be trash. New World is the best, most recent example of it too. So yeah, don't tell me like, oh, there were big MMOs coming. Like, no, dude. Until the MMO is released, I'm not believing a damn thing.
Pretty much all of the games on this list were somewhere near the top of the upcoming MMOs that I'm looking forward to playing, me personally. There's some pretty big names here that just completely got the axe this year. It's almost unbelievable.
And I bet there was a good reason for it too. Clearly, someone at the upper management saw the direction that this was going and he went like, nope, we're not gonna spend more money on this. It's just burning it. You're just throwing cash into a furnace and we're not gonna do that, chief. So clearly, it was a wise decision to pull the plug. People don't pull the plug on good games. It happened in the past, but it happened so few. Most of the time it happens, it's for the better.
And I think just really speaks to the current state of...
And even showing the Ghost Crawler MMO thing, which was absolutely horrendous. I've seen the testing for it. It was garbage, straight up. The moment I saw this, I knew this was going to be canceled. It was straight up trash.
Things for MMO fans. If you're someone like me who looks forward to checking out new games and having new experiences in the genre, it's really not looking great out there. It simply is not. So most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, it was revealed that the Warhammer MMO being developed by Jacalyptic Games had been canceled as a result of their partnership with NetEase abruptly coming.
Man, I swear to God, every Warhammer game is either the best thing or the most garbage thing in the world. They're just cursed, I feel like. And I mean, it's so frustrating because I recently started dipping my toes into the Warhammer lore, which is, super extensive, right? The Warhammer 40k lore. I mean, my God, it is glorious. It is so good, and the potential behind it is uncanny. I truly believe that if they make a proper Warhammer MMORPG, it would literally clap the cheeks of every other game known to man. I genuinely believe that. But they need to make a proper one, and I think it's an impossible task. I mean, at least from what I read, it's just so frustrating because I really wish we would have a Warhammer MMO. And we had back in the day, right? The old one, there's still private servers for it, and I actually watched it recently. And they look kind of dope, actually. I might try it.
To an end. Now, we first learned about this game back in 2023, being developed by Jacalyptic, a fresh studio founded by Jack Emmerich, who's probably best known as the lead designer on both City of Heroes and City of Villains. This Warhammer MMO was going to be this studio's first major project, of which Emmerich said, "As someone who has molded my career developing expansive MMO stories, I'm proud to unveil that our first game in development at Jacalyptic Games will focus on the rich universes of Warhammer Warhammer, bringing the deep lore of this IP to our game is a massive undertaking, and we are thrilled to work alongside Games Workshop to bring this vision to life. So they'd been working closely with Games Workshop and had a lot of plans for the MMO. Following the initial reveal, Emmerich had gone on a bit of a interview tour, sharing some details. He said the team of developers working on the game had loads of MMO experience, some of which included prior members of Daybreak Games who had ended up following Emmerich onto his next project. They intended to stay true to the Warhammer IP, although at the time it hadn't been specified if this was 40k, fantasy, or otherwise, just that it was in the Warhammer umbrella. The game would have action combat as well, as opposed to the old school style of tab targeting. There would be support for user-generated content, something they had done with prior games, including both Never.
It sounded like they had big ideas, but whenever they came to just try and develop and actually make it true, they faced a lot of problems. That's how it sounds from, you know, my perspective at least. But who knows?
Star Trek Online, and it was said to be a PC-centric game, even though they had been partnering with NetEase. They said that there was, quote, no pressure or suggestion that we should have to do mobile, although now that we know how that's ended, I don't know, maybe they should have announced they were going to do mobile, so NetEase wouldn't have canceled the thing. Yeah, earlier this month, on Friday, November 7th specifically, Jack Emmerich posted, "I'm here to share a note that after nearly 3.5 years working with NetEase as a first-party studio, our partnership will be coming to an end," going on to add that their team would be exploring new opportunities, or in other words, everybody's looking for a job because Jackalyptic has been canceled or closed down, and this Warhammer MMO, it will never see the light of day. Prior to the Warhammer MMO's cancellation, back in October, Project Ghost, in development by Fantastic Pixel Castle, was also canceled as a result of NetEase pulling their funding. What's probably most
Thank God, it looks disgusting. This was horrendous. If you haven't seen anything related to it, good job, keep doing that. It was absolutely horrible.
Interesting about this game is that it had an incredibly open development, with the studio routinely sharing progress reports, developer blogs, screenshots, and even a lot of early gameplay. In fact, not too long ago, they had several content creators get hands-on time with the game. There are videos here on YouTube right now by the likes of...
By the way, aren't you guys super tired of these graphics being abused and dead beaten to the ground already? I feel every game that comes out look like this, and I just had enough, man. I just had enough. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it looks bad. We just seen so many games looking like this, it's kind of got all samey. It's the same how I hate every single game trying to be photorealistic these days. I mean, just have stylized arts and do your own thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be as good, just be different. That's all I'm saying. It's so weird. I hate the way this game looks.
Content creators get hands-on time with the game. There are videos here on YouTube right now by the likes of Co-Carnage and Josh Strife Hayes and others where you can see like hours of raw gameplay of this thing. It certainly had a ways to go,
and they roasted this game to oblivion. I know Josh Strife Hayes did. I watched everything. It was absolutely horrible.
But there were some interesting ideas here. They would be supporting traditional fantasy roles with tanking, healing, and damage dealers. The game would be divided into multiple zone types. You'd have blue zones and red zones. One of these would be more like a survival craft.
It's trash mechanic, and they should have never done this. They should have never done this. One area was like PvE area with everyone, you can see everyone, and one was like dungeon farming, super instance. Like, why? Everything should be one world and one play. Everyone play together. That's MMO part. That's where the MMO comes into effect. You should have never split the fan base like that. It's weird, man. Like, don't do that.
Crafting experience with some procedural generation, whereas the other would be more akin to a traditional MMORPG open world zones with handcrafted locations. Visually, yes, the game was full of placeholders.
Dude, whenever, oh my God, I'm sorry for pausing all the time, but for the love of God, whenever I hear AI generated, I'm out, dude. I'm out. Like, no.
But concept and design-wise, it definitely showed a lot of promise.
It works in some games like Path of Exile when it's moderated and controlled to an extent, but when you make content out of it, it's gonna be garbage.
Last month, on October 9th, Greg Street, the head of Fantastic Pixel Castle, posted this announcement. I wanted to share the news that Fantastic Pixel Castle's time as a first-party studio within NetEase Games is coming to an end. NetEase Games has been very gracious and supportive of looking for another publisher for our game. However, in the current market environment, very few deals are getting made for any game, let alone something on the scale of an MMORPG. RPG. Now, he did go on to say that they would be continuing to search for new publishers and investors with the hopes.
If any publisher watches this gameplay and think to themselves, I'm gonna invest resources into that, they're straight up stupid and they should not be responsible for anything financial whatsoever.
Of keeping the studio alive and reviving the project. This unfortunately did not happen, and as of this week, on November 17th, Fantastic Pixel Castle has shuttered its doors, and unless some miracle happens in the coming weeks and months, Project Ghost will likely forever remain a specter. Also this past October, we had Amazon announce that they would be scaling back their games division with the intent to fully exit any and all MMO development. So with this, they revealed plans to halt production for any further future content in New World. The game's servers will be remaining online for the time being, but no new content or updates will be coming, so its shutdown is just a matter of when, not if.
To be honest, New World survived way beyond my expectations. I thought this game was going to die way sooner than it did. The game had a ton of problems. If you remember the release, it was one of the... No, it was actually, I think, the worst release I've ever seen for an MMO. It was so buggy, and don't even get me started about all the duping bugs. You could have duplicated gold, items, whatever. You could kick out players because you gave them, items that shouldn't be allowed to be on players. You gave them GM items and all that stuff. There's so many exploits. I mean, the list just would last forever, but man, they actually managed to hold somehow.
More though is that the new Lord of the Rings MMO that they had in development, that has been canceled again. The attempt at making a new Lord of the Rings MMORPG beyond the existing Lord of the Rings Online has been seemingly cursed. I guess we'll blame Sauron for this one. I don't know, dude.
Dude, I love the fact where companies think that a name can carry an entire IP. No. Having the Lord of the Rings name, which, by the way, Lord of the Rings, literally my favorite trilogy of all times. I watched it so many times, and if a good Lord of the Rings game will ever drop, I'll be the first one to play it. But having the name alone is not enough. You need to actually make a good game, and that's the problem.
Now, this actually dates all the way back to the summer of 2019 when Amazon first came out to announce they had entered into an agreement to develop an MMO based on the franchise. During this reveal, they...
Shadow 4 and Shadow of Mordor, what a goated game. I played both of them to completion. Dude, I love them to death. They're so good.
Said that they had a lot of industry veterans working on the title, people who had worked on World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Rift, Destiny, and Defiance. They wanted to make this engrossing new AAA experience set at a time long before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, exploring lands, people, and creatures never before seen. Now, the game's development had been going along. Again, we first heard about it in 2019. Development was going on. And then kind of out of the blue, even though we had reports that development was going fine, in early 2021, Amazon announced that the Lord of the Rings MMO was canceled. This was because what happened was in late 2020, the company that they were co-developing the game with, they were partnered with Leiyu Technologies. They had been purchased by Tencent, and then after that purchase, Amazon and Tencent went into contract negotiations, but because they failed to come to any agreement between the two parties, the game got the axe. And then a couple of years later, in 2023, they re-announced plans for a new, different Lord of the Rings MMO. This time, they would be cutting out the middleman and working directly with Middle-earth Enterprises, having full control to make exactly the MMO they wanted, as they would be doing it at their in-house Amazon Game Studios. Clearly, that didn't last very long, because here we are a couple of years later, and then this past October, the game once again has received the axe. At least this time, it was their decision.
They revived it just to kill it again.
I guess. I don't freaking know, dude. And then the last game on this list of sacked MMOs that I was looking forward to is Blackbird. And this one, honestly, I think stings the most. So back in July, as part of a massive round of layoffs you may have heard about, Microsoft cutting thousands of jobs, much of which impacted their games division. And in the process,
haven't even heard about
Project
that one.
Blackbird was canceled. This was a new MMO in development at ZeniMax Online Studios, creators of the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, first...
Oh yeah, then good thing it failed, because Elder Scrolls Online is garbage. I've tried this one out. It's absolutely horrible.
First off, I just want to say here, I really like Elder Scrolls Online. It's not a perfect game, but there is a lot about it that I love, and I have gotten many hundreds of hours of entertainment out of this game over the years. In fact, I would probably say it's a top 5 MMO for me.
Yeah, because all the other MMOs are dead or just straight up garbage. This is the only MMO that functions, so, you know, it kind of gets into the top 5 territory. It's so sad. I mean, it's so sad, but it's true. You know it's true.
It would be like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, ESO, Star Wars The Old Republic, and ESO. Like a rough list. Plus or minus some games, you know what I mean? But it's 100% in...
Let me think. What are top 5 MMOs, actually? I don't even know. Obviously, World of Warcraft is number 1 still, which is, you know, kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. Guild Wars 2, 100% up there. Final Fantasy 14, it's definitely goated. I don't know if it's better than World of Warcraft at this point, but before that, I would have crowned it like the number 1 for sure. I played it for 6 months and it was amazing. So what would the other 2 be? I'm not even sure. I mean, I want to say MapleStory, but people would literally kill me. But that's just you know, it's a personal thing. I love MapleStory. Before it came pay to win, guys, before it became pay to win, it was actually a good game. Believe it or not.
The top 10, and I really do feel ESO is like top 5. Like games I've played the most, got the most entertainment out of, have worlds that I've really enjoyed exploring.
RuneScape, I haven't tried, so I'm not going to say anything about RuneScape. I know a lot of you guys watching me playing it, like banging RuneScape, like 100% facts. Great for you guys. Personally, I haven't played it, so I'm not going to make any comments. But it looks great, for sure.
Exploring and content that I've enjoyed engaging with. ESO is up there. It's got flaws, but it's definitely up there for me if I'm listing them out. I, at the least, certainly have liked it well enough that I was super interested in seeing on what they were going to be working on next. Project Blackbird had been in production for nearly 7 years, and by all accounts, it was actually sounding like something that I could have loved. A few quotes to sum up the game here as follows. It was a blending of Destiny, Blade Runner, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Players would take up the role of revenants aligned with one of 5 different factions to explore the planet of Soteria, which has one side scorched by this endless sun and another side covered in darkness and ice, with a habitable zone in between known as the Twilight Band, and this whole continent wrapped up in the shooter MMO package. Blackbird was a third-person online looter shooter, not too unlike Destiny, set within a new franchise. It had the sci-fi noir aesthetic, similar to films like Blade.
Oh yeah, actually Destiny was a really good game. I played Destiny 2 a lot. It was a good game.
Runner, and had placed a lot of emphasis on vertical movement. Now, multiple sources who worked on the project have shared details about the game in the ensuing months. It was said to be a fully open world with a mix of biomes, visually diverse locations, points of interest, and then a major city known as Exodus. This was supposed to be
Then why they gave it the axe after 7 years of development? That's the question that should always be at the back of your mind when you're hearing these developers trying to sell you out on something. Why was it in development for 7 years and then it got axed? Something is really fishy behind all of this, and they are obfuscating and doing a lot of shady stuff, and they're clearly hiding information. There's no reason whatsoever that an MMO should be in development for 7 years and then get the axe. No reason whatsoever.
Like massive elaborate zone into and of itself, located smack in the center of the game's world, referred to as a mega city with many vertical layers, hidden secrets, and mysteries within. And then on either side of the city, as you go out from the habitable Twilight Band in the middle, you would head towards those extreme ends. So it maybe be like lush forest and jungles in the middle, and then towards one end, towards that burning sun, it would get more deserty and hotter. Towards the other end, it would get cooler and more tundra-like until it eventually became a barren cold area. You'd have a hot area and a cold area, and then warmer and better stuff in the middle with the big mega city right smack in the middle. And that city was like a zone, completely huge, massive, explorable. There would be a big emphasis on traversal. Players could use abilities like double jumping, air dashing, and a grappling hook, and wall climbing to kind of fling yourself around tall buildings like superheroes. Something that I really liked in Dune Awakening, I think, is a great example of like traversal systems kind of flying around the environment. So I envision that could have been really really cool. For characters and classes, they had planned detailed customizations with sculpting your body, adding scars, tattoos, biomods, and cybernetics. They would have a traditional Holy Trinity MMO system, tanky guns for hire, damage dealers, environmental controlling tech operators, and then healers known as augments. And then for content-wise, they plan to have questing for both solo and 4-player group missions. Besides exploring, you would take on basic quests, sending you out into the world to complete objectives and collect rewards. There were more difficult strike missions that would take up to 6 players to complete. They had large public events called firefights where players would dynamically come together to take on these larger threats.
Nice.
There are also plans for a housing system and PvP, although much like the Elder Scrolls Online, Blackbird would primarily focus on co-op gameplay and shared world environments, modifying various weapons and customizing your own apartments, vehicles, and drones. And they said it would be kind of similar to Bethesda RPGs with some of the dialogue options and stuff, although the team was aiming to try to make it more accessible along the lines of Destiny, while also being dynamic like Warframe and having a mysterious world, something akin to Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I think what's most interesting...
Again, all of these things that he just mentioned, it just sound like a very long list of I wish to have this in a game, but none of them came to pass. So, again, it's just weird for me. It's super weird.
Interesting about this game, though, is that by all accounts, it was coming along nicely, and the people who played it, including Xbox executives, were pretty impressed, having like nothing but complimentary words for the project. In fact, it was reportedly said that Phil Spencer was enjoying his time trying the game so much they had to physically pull the controller away from him to continue their important business meetings. And this was according to
this is so cringe, dude, trying to sell us out on a non-existent product. Please, dude, for the love of God. Phil Spencer has said so many things that turned out to be wrong in the past. And I mean, just look at Blizzard's state. After the purchase, everyone like, oh my God, there we go, Blizzard is free, World of Warcraft is gonna be good again. Well, is it good again, boys? Is it good again? No.
People who were in the room at the time. Also, Schreier reported having seen a vertical slice of the game, saying that he was impressed. It was slick looking with alluring visuals and interesting battle sequences.
And then it got axed.
Nevertheless, despite the positive impressions and the game's development seemingly going...
It was the best game ever known to man, and it was so good that we had to cancel it because you guys couldn't take it. Believe me, I saved you from a lifetime of addiction. We should thank Phil Spencer. Clearly, his controller is still in his hands. So, yeah, wow, thank you. Thank you guys so much. Wow, incredible. Incredible.
Well, Microsoft officially canceled Project Blackbird this past July. Now, when it comes to all of these canceled projects, between Microsoft canceling Blackbird, Amazon canceling their...
It's like they actually think that we're stupid, and we're gonna believe that. A game was so good that it got shut down. Come on, dude. Come on. Something was clearly off. I bet that even half of the things that he just mentioned weren't even inside the game. I bet.
Lord of the Rings MMO, and then NetEase pulling funding out of the Project Ghost, as well as the Warhammer MMO. It all comes down to money. It's literally like an opportunity cost thing. They say, hey, we can invest however many hundreds of $millions in this project, this MMO, and it's going to make some money, but will it make the most money? Like, if I'm going to spend $500 million in Project Blackbird, would I be better suited spending that $500 million elsewhere? And that's essentially what these companies decide when they end up canceling projects like this. It's all a matter of opportunity cost. In fact, it is reportedly the case that in canceling Project Blackbird, that then allowed them to greenlight the next Fallout game.
But here's the thing, the game was 7 years in development, so at this point you already have a significant amount of money invested into it, so it really raises the question, what the hell did they do in those 7 years that they weren't even willing to just let the game be released at the state that it was? So it just raises a lot of red flags because the game must have had absolutely nothing going for it. Clearly, I mean, otherwise they would have just released it and everything would have been fine. Even if it was undercooked, just like World of Warcraft was back in the day, because in case you don't know, World of Warcraft, the first version, like, you know, vanilla, was halfway made. I think it was like 50% done, even less than that. There should have been a lot more content. Most of it came in Cataclysm, actually, like Hyjal and, you know, Caverns of Time that came in TBC. and all of these zones and stuff, they weren't in the game, but they should have been. Like Tears Hand should have been a raid, like Scarlet Crusade should have been a raid, right? All of that stuff should have been in the game, but it wasn't. Blizzard released it as is, and to this day, it's the best MMORPG ever. So it really raises a question of why after 7 years of development, they had nothing to go for. Like no meat, no bones, nothing, right? It had nothing.
Microsoft's decision. They're like, you know what, we're going to stop supporting Project Blackbird and we're just going to greenlight development for the next Fallout game from Bethesda proper. They're connected. There's the ZeniMax Online Studios makes the MMO, but then there's the Umbrella ZeniMax company, and then there's Bethesda underneath that as well. So they're connected, and all of that got purchased by Microsoft at one point, as I'm sure you're familiar.
Owns everything.
And yeah, freaking sucks, dude, as a fan of MMOs. Now, circling back to that Warhammer MMO, during his interviews, Jack Emmert actually discussed what is pretty clearly a market desire for good new games in the genre that isn't being fulfilled, saying that after World of Warcraft, people tried to copy World of Warcraft, and in doing so, they tried to compete with World of Warcraft, which means investing a lot of money, which then requires a lot of profit. It required a massive success bigger than Warcraft.
But it's not about money. They realized that it wasn't about the cash. It was about the talent, and the talent was lacking. Nobody can make an MMO like Jeff Kaplan and all of the great people like Chris Metzen. I know he's back on World of Warcraft, but he's not really the same. And all of these, like Mike Morhaime, all of these big names that we know and love. I mean, look at Jeff Kaplan video from back in the day when he talked about dungeon design and all of that stuff. You can see the passion in that man's eyes. You could have seen that. He knows what he was talking about. He was willing to build a game with the community. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. You don't have people like this. All the good men are gone. Nerds aren't making video games anymore. All we get is guys in suits that care about a graph that literally goes like this. But all they do is manage to have a graph that looks like that. So very unfortunate.
When they didn't achieve that, because of course they didn't, World of Warcraft was one of a kind. Most of the major publishers just gave up on MMOs. To this day, we live in a world where in the West, there are very few new MMOs.
Well, I mean, yes, but now World of Warcraft is failing horribly. It reached through a point where Blizzard releases the same version of the old version we loved over and over again. We're getting TBC for a second time. You know how desperate Blizzard are? There is a room for an MMO, for a good MMORPG right now, more than any other period in our lifetime. This is actually a really good opportunity for games to start raising their head. For sure, if we get a good MMORPG, it will be king. We have a spot for a new king.
He went on to add, so from the perspective of the genre,
and it's not going to be Ashes of Creation, by the way,
would say there is still demand. New World came out and quadrillions of copies were sold, well above 10 million, which is amazing, which tells me that there are people who want to play an MMO, but there's nobody making them. Well, there's certainly nobody making them anymore. I mean, like literally 4 of the ones that I was most looking forward to when we talk about IPs, the studios that they're coming from, just conceptually how these games were being put. I was...
Big studio names means nothing anymore, man. People are looking way more to indie games rather than like big studio games. AAA is dead, and the amount of money you pour about any game today doesn't really matter. And Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it just goes to show that. And I'm not saying that a small amount of money was poured into this game, because they had quite a significant budget, but compare the talent they had to, like, you know, those AAA companies that can afford pretty much anyone, and you'll be impressed. Most of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 developers were junior leveled, but it didn't matter. Even the woman who wrote the script, or a significant part of it, she just planned to help them with something and then, like, you know, dip. But they actually convinced her to write the script for it, and she did phenomenal work. So it is incredible just to see how talented people aren't really appreciated in the industry anymore. And people are constantly looking for like big names, like, oh, we have Ghostcrawler, like he's gonna save the time. No, dude. No, it just ain't gonna work, Chief. You need actual talented people, and we need nerds to make videos again. That's pretty much all that we have to do.
Genuinely looking forward to each of these. I love Warhammer as a franchise and an IP. I'm not the biggest Warhammer nerd, but every Warhammer video game that I played, I've always been like, this is such a cool world and a setting, and it would make for an awesome MMO. And there have been Warhammer MMOs. There's the Warhammer Age of Reckoning, which we had the history of and has seen a resurgence in recent years. And in fact, there was also a Warhammer Dark Millennium. There was a Warhammer 40k MMO that was almost released, but ended up getting canceled many years ago. And I would have loved to see a new Warhammer MMO. I play something like Space Marine. I play something like Dark Tide.
For sure.
I play something like Vermintide. And I'm like, dude, with modern graphics, the Warhammer setting would make a kick-ass place for an MMORPG. We had that in development back up.
And the funny thing is, the world is already built up for you. So you just need a company with a sizable budget, I will say. And you can make the greatest MMORPG ever. I mean, you already have the foundations. You don't need to make up anything. You just need to make the game around it, and that's pretty much it. You already have the best IP, right? So many people are already hooked. Just the Warhammer name alone would get you a ton of players for sure, myself included. So it's kind of weird nobody really took that role yet.
Canceled. Of course, Project Ghost coming out of Ghostcrawler, although visually what was showcased, there wasn't much there to kind of draw you in, right? But conceptually, the things they were talking about and from those hands-on impressions from the like of Carnage and Josh Dreyfus, it seemed like the game was coming together and it certainly had a promising future. The Lord of the Rings MMO, I know everyone hates Amazon games and they hate what happened with New World, and I totally agree. Like, list your grievances and I would probably say yes to all of them. Nevertheless, they did create some immersive, interesting spaces in New World, and there were things about New World that I enjoyed, although it didn't all come.
So don't mind the 90% of absolute trash. Just look at the 10% that was nice and say, hey, they managed to do that.
Come together in the end for the perfect MMO package. There was certainly a fan base. There were people who loved that game, and there were things about that game that I loved. So I would have loved to see them take learnings from that and work on the next project, and with the visuals and the immersive nature of New World, like sideboarding that into a Lord of the Rings world and ideally improved upon, that would have been great as well. And Blackbird, dude, literally, it's like my dream.
Imagine being able to dupe the One Ring. That would have been hilarious. That would actually be cool.
To get a third-person shooter
so
that's
many
actually
abuses.
A full-blown open-world MMO. It's something that I want so desperately someone to do properly, and it's not really been fulfilled. There's been glimpses of that. I actually think Dune Awakening is like close to it, but not enough because it's so sandboxy and the Haga base.
Dude, it's literally the most made-up trash I've ever seen in a video game whatsoever. It looked like someone made it with a Source engine, and I'm not here to like clown on the Source engine. It's literally one of the best engines out there, but it's so old and outdated at this point, and it's just so funny to me that these games look completely bare bones and people are like, oh, it has potential. People are actually grasping at straws. That is unfortunate to just see. That is just sad.
Which is where a bulk of the PvE content is so limited in scope when it comes to the number of players. If we can keep pushing in that direction and get closer and closer to a third-person looter shooter with fantasy RPG classes and
turn the game into something completely different and it will be good. Trust me, guys. Just literally change everything and this game is just fantastic.
Skill trees and systems that's also in a big open world. Basically what Project Blackbird was. Basically how they describe Project Blackbird. That is the...
I love the sentence that how Project Blackbird was, or okay, at least what they described it to be. Like, dude, oh my god, I understand forced frustrations, man. I truly am. I love this guy so much, but I mean, come on, man. We're not gonna get it. I think it's better to just accept our fate and live with it than keep ourselves delusional. Like, we're just deluded, man. We had enough. There is no light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we're just cooked, boys. I gotta be honest with you.
The dream that I have for a third-person looter shooter MMO. So it freaking sucks that this shit's getting canceled nonstop. It's really unbelievable. And I will just echo the quotes that I just read from Emirates. There is a clear desire for a Western MMORPG. I love a lot of my games out of the East, you know what I mean? But there's also...
To be fair, East Gaming are cooking right now. And we've seen this with Where Winds Meet and like Black Myth Wukong and all that stuff. I know, not MMORPGs. But I believe that there is more high likability that the next big MMORPG will actually come from the East and not from the West. Because I think Western developers have completely lost the idea of how to make a good MMO. And to be honest, games in general. So right now, like, we're laughing, but they're cooking, man. Like Eastern gaming, they're cooking, dude. Well, I think the next big MMORPG might come for that region. You don't know.
With the MMO genre in particular, there's so much bloat and unnecessary systems and tracking, and not even bringing up the monetization and the gacha stuff. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if we're ever going to see it, but
He's right about
I will
that.
say this: there are still plenty of other MMOs I'm looking forward to on the horizon. I will for certain be putting together another list for 2026. It'll come at some point here, but it's also pretty clear, as if it hasn't been already over the past decade, that when it comes to new MMOs in the genre, and specifically new MMOs from Western studios, we're in a really rough spot. It's not looking great. Now, I will add, I get it. There's a lot of existing games in this genre that are great to play, and I do. Like, I'll revisit most of my favorite MMOs from time to time, couple times a year.
If they're that great, why nobody's talking about them? Nobody's talking about World of Warcraft. Nobody really... Well, I mean, right now, Guild Wars 2 is actually seeing a resurgence, and a lot of more people are playing it, but still, it was always its own thing, because it's completely different from all the other MMOs, so nobody's really competing with that, because, again, it's a horizontal MMO where every other MMO is vertical, so nobody's really competing with Guild Wars 2. It's kind of doing its own thing, and it always had. But what other great MMO we have outside of World of Warcraft? World of Warcraft is literally pulling all the players in, and some people play Final Fantasy XIV. I heard it got really bad after the initial story arc ended, but, I mean, it still pulls a lot of players, right? But other than, like, these two, who really gets the players? Nobody. I'd say there's a vacant spot for a big new MMO. Like I said earlier, like, for sure, if a good MMORPG will come, it will rake all the players from all current MMORPGs. I'm 100% sure.
But there's nevertheless a strong desire and wanting for new games in the genre. Like, I don't want to just be revisiting the past all the time, even if it's for updates for those games. I like experiencing evolutions and improvements to things in the world of gaming. And I just wish we had more opportunities as fans of MMOs. I wish we had more opportunities for new evolutions and improvements to the genre, but there's just so few and far between, especially now with 4 of the ones that I was genuinely looking forward to canceled over just the past few months. Dude, this has been 2025 has been a killer year for in-production MMOs. I can't actually believe the headline that four of them canceled in 1 year. Really sucks, dude. Genuinely really does. That's all for today, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts, as always, below. Let me know what you think about this topic. Any of those games where you're really looking forward to, doesn't matter because we're not getting them. They will forever live in my head canon of what could have been. But that's all for today. Thanks, as always, for watching. Hope you guys...
Damn, that was a despair video for sure. By the way, I love Force so much, dude. This guy is an OG. I'm gonna leave a link in the description so you guys can watch this video for yourself and give him a like and a sub if you haven't already, because I watched this video for years at this point, so I'm so happy to actually be able to react to him. Such a phenomenal content creator. But yeah, I mean, to the topic, dude, it just sucks. But we need to accept the fact that we're not gonna see a good MMORPG in the next 5 years. I genuinely believe that, unless there's some MMO hidden in the shadows somewhere that's gonna come out of absolutely nowhere. But as with the knowledge and information that we have available now, I'd say that the only best option we have to kind of look for is maybe the Riot Games MMORPG, because it's based in the universe of Runeterra, which we already know for a fact is good. I read almost all the Runeterra lores at this point, and it is phenomenal. So they already have the world pretty much lined up and built for them. All they need to do is build a good MMO around it, and we Gucci, like, everything will be fine. So I really hope they would manage to do that, but right now we haven't really heard anything about that. So even that, it's just, you know, we kind of hoping here. That's a copium take, but it is what it is. It's all we have. So yeah, well, unfortunate, but it is what it is.